Hey everyone, happy Financially Free Friday. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. I think we're still celebrating Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa coming up. Merry all the things. And I have an amazing guest with me today, the one and only Mr. Bats. You know, that's when I talk about him, that's how I affectionately refer to him. And so I am excited to have this conversation, for us to have this conversation with you. I'm going to wait for you all to join and hang on a second. Look at comments so that I can see when you're joining. Can you say hi so that I know you guys are here? I know several of you have been messaging me. I can't be there. I have to watch the replay. Hey, BFF and Tony. Do you see that? Diane.
Hi, Diane.
Looking so rich. Ooh, I love it. So, all right, as you all are joining, hey, everybody's, hey, Tony, I'm here too. It's like, hey, everyone, good morning. So excited to watch this, Jackie says. All right, Merry Christmas to all of you. And as you're joining, just tell us, tell us your hi, Tony, and let's know that you all are here. And if you're watching the replay, we're sending you live love. Anyway, I know it's the holidays and everyone's busy. Tony, in fact, said, is anyone going to be able to do this? Because everyone's so busy right now. So for those of you that are here, thank you. This is, hi, Tasha Bats and Tony. I love it. So just so you know, this is a dream come true moment for both of us because we have really incredible conversations, I think. Tony and I, we talk about the good, the bad, the awkward. We laugh about all kinds of crazy things. And one of the things that we realized was it would be really cool to share our conversations and some of the insights that we have about life with anyone that would be interested in listening. And when I asked you all on Monday, so many of you said yes. So thank you for actually making our dreams come true. When I was getting ready this morning, I remembered on our mutual manifested life board, right at the very bottom, I don't know if you remember this, there's a little thing that says our stories deserve to be told, which is our stories. So you get to be the manifestation of that and to hear some parts of our stories. All right, so now I see a bunch of you are here. A couple of things I need you to know. This is my very first white Christmas. You can't see outside, but it snowed all night. We're up in the mountains. It snowed all night. It's my very first below 0 degree. What's the temperature?
7 degrees below zero.
7 degrees below zero. What does one do with that? I am trying to figure that out.
Snuggle.
We've been inside all morning, so I'll see what happens after this live when we go outside. But it's snowing. It's like picturesque. It's beautiful. It's a white Christmas. And the most important one of all is it's our very first Christmas as Mr. and Mrs. Bats. So you get to share that with us. Welcome to my world. Denise says she lives in New York. Welcome to my, yes, snuggling weather. All right, so listen, here's how we're going to play today. Tony and I, someone asked in one of the comments, what's the intention for this conversation? And for Tony and I, it really is just to share a little bit of our personal story, some of the insights around how we navigate real life. And some of you were generous enough to ask questions. We chose a few that we're going to answer today, but really it's, I'm always so committed to sharing my real life, all the real things. And I think that having this conversation and having Tony here is just a extension of that realness. So with that, I'm going to start with asking Tony to share with you. You ready, babe?
Yes, babe.
I'm going to start with asking Tony to share with you how we met, because I think a lot of people want to know the answer to that question. And then I'll chime in with whatever parts you know me, I always jump in the story. So I'll chime in with whatever I think he misses out.
Well, I like to say good morning and hello to everyone. And I have to apologize. I'm not used to doing this. So this is very unique. It's kind of like our relationship. My wife is used to sharing her entire life, but I'm a very private person. And so that always makes for a uniqueness. I think our story, our walk, started probably 1,000 years ago. And I'll make sense out of that and what that actually means. I tend to be more on the side of being scientific and data and facts and things along those lines. Whereas Tasha, as you well know, is a person who feels. and a person who gets information in a different way than I get information. I think how it all started for us is online, something that I feel very uncomfortable about doing.
Same.
Things like Match.com, and during a time of boredom for me, I believe in mid to late January, I went on this thing called Elite.com. And because I travel so much, it doesn't make it easy for us having a very good, strong social life because I move all the time. And so it makes it very difficult to meet anyone. And so when I was at home some point in time, I put this thing on Elite.com and I looked into it. And what I was taken by, and I'm gonna try not to be too long-winded, what I was taken by is the fact that they had this miniature psychological examination. And what it really looked at and graded you on is emotional intelligence, how you dealt with difficult situations, how do you communicate, and all those different things. And so as I went on, the very first person, believe it or not, that I looked at was Tasha. And so what I saw was this young lady who captured me by her smile and by her beauty. And she had this kind of like a bluish blouse on, kind of like this in the picture. She's sitting on the bed. I think she has white pants on. She's in a yoga pose with her legs crossed. And she just looks very relaxed, very confident. And I loved her look. I loved her hair. I tried to make sense out of the background, any information I could get. And when I read her background, it said that I'm an island girl. I really love what I do. And she made that point very clear in her expose that she loved what she did. And I was interested, what is it that she's doing that she can love so much? And then as I looked at her emotional profile, I was very taken because what they said based on their standards is that there was only 10% of respondents or the nation that were more emotionally mature than she was, right? Which said a lot. And it talked about how she dealt with conflict and different things along those lines. So that captured me right there. And then she wasn't too far away from me. So being a little kind of an introvert, shy guy, you probably wouldn't pick that up, but I am actually an introvert. I kind of sent her a happy face and thinking that would start off a conversation smoothly and low key. She didn't respond. She didn't respond the first hour. She didn't respond the second hour. She didn't respond the second day. She didn't respond. And so I kind of said, okay, clearly this is not going to be anything that's going to take place. And at some point, you have to pick up the story because I forgot exactly what you did, but you made contact. So you want to take that part?
So the backstory is I had gotten to the point in my journey where I was like, I'm done with this Elite Singles website, dating, all of it. And I made a list of 12 things I was going to do to date myself. And I was like, all right, here we go. I'm off and running. But I didn't come off the site. Like I didn't cancel my membership, but internally I was done with it. So my cousin Nadine, who was watching, yay, cousin Nad, was staying with me at the time. And it was Valentine's Day, which I remember was very sad and depressing. And then February 15th, that night, I get a message from Elite saying, Tony B liked your picture. And I was like, okay, like, let's go. And meaning I did nothing. And then it was like consecutively, Tony B liked your picture, Tony B liked your picture. So we obviously went and liked every single picture. Now, those of us that are Facebookers, you know that liking somebody's picture, really, it's like, oh, I'm walking past you in the mall, I see you and I say hi. Like there's no commitment behind it. And because I was done, I was like, this means nothing. So I didn't respond for a few days. And so finally,
How'd that work out for you, babe?
Do you hear that? How'd that work out for you, being all stuck up? So finally, a few days goes by, and I don't know what happened on his end, but he says to me, hey, hi, Miss Tasha, being very Mr. Tony. Hi, Miss Tasha. I've looked at your profile, and you seem very grounded and really amazing. And the only question I have is, are you more romantic than you are pragmatic? And it was over. It was like game over. Like I was like, wait a second, an emotionally intelligent man with a deep and profound question to start, marry me right now.
That was easy.
kind of it. Anyway, that was really it on my end. I wasn't responding to, just like any old interest. Like I needed a lot more than that at that time. And he brought it.
Well, the interesting part is as we finally make a connection and we're sharing in romancing each other over text messages and things along those lines, and which is not my natural thing. I'm not a Facebooker. I'm not a TikToker and all these different things. And so that's kind of unusual for me. I like the good old fashioned way of face to face and having a conversation. By any chance, we started to talk, and as we started to talk, it seemed like, from my standpoint, I've known this woman my entire life. There's this familiarity that was there. We had common values, common interests. We laughed for hours, all the romantic things that kind of take place. And we go on, and after a period of time of a couple of weeks, I made the statement to her is that it seemed like I've known you before. It almost seems like that we have been kindred spirits and that we have connected before at some given point in time. I said, it feels like I was in love with you or married to you like 1,000 years ago. It's just that unusual. I'm typically not the love at first sight kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm more pragmatic than that.
Way more.
And so for that to happen, it was very interesting, but it was very fulfilling and very romantic. And we kind of progressed from that standpoint. But here's the interesting part. And I tell you about the 1,000-year thing. My wife, as you guys well know, tries a lot of different things. And so she's talking to me about a numerologist. And she says that she's going to have a reading, or the lack of a better phrase, a reading. And I'm kind of, okay, babe, whatever's good for you, do your thing. And I don't believe in any of this stuff, right? I don't believe
and we're going to talk about that too.
Don't believe in it. It's not science. But, do you, babe? Do your thing. And she goes off and she does it. And I said, well, connecting on our days over the phone, I go, how was it and what took place? And did you get anything about it from it? And she goes, oh, yeah, this is fascinating. It's good stuff. You should listen to it. I go, nah, I'm good. And after the conversation, she says, yeah, let's talk to it and listen to it. And so I think some of you guys know Leah. Is it Leah?
Leah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so eventually I did listen to it just to humor her, to kind of
to be a good partner.
Yeah. And so we started listening to it. And there again, remember what I said. I don't believe in any of this, right?
He does not believe in this stuff.
Zero, right? I don't believe in gates and chakras, and I don't. It's just not me. And I don't mean to offend anyone. I really don't. However, this lady, when I listen to her commentary on me, who's never met me, Tasha doesn't know me that well at that time, right? We're still getting to learn each other. This woman nails me. I mean, nails me, right? And she knows nothing. And there's things in me that I have never been able to articulate to other people. She nails it, right? And in her comment, and this is the point I'm really trying to get to. In her commentary, she says, you guys were married 1,000 years ago. Is that insane? It is for me.
So, oh my gosh. So everyone's going to ask me for Leah's phone number now. That's going to happen, right? Denise is like, Leah is magical.
Know, right?
So here's the thing. I meet Tony and we're starting to date, and it's very clear this guy is Mr. Science, pragmatic, right? Very, very, yeah, he can tell me he's falling in love, but like that's as far as he's willing to go. And he says to me this 1,000 years thing. And if you know me, I'm eating it all up. I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, a man that says we've been married before. In fact, and then he keeps going. He's like, in fact, I think a few times in a few lifetimes. And I'm like leaning in, going, eating it all up. And I'll never forget, we go to dinner in Atlanta and we're sitting across the table. And I'm like, I am hooked. Line and sinker, hooked on this man with this story about we've been together for several lifetimes. And he says to me, do you believe in reincarnation? And I go, yeah. I go, how about you? He goes, no, I don't believe in reincarnation. And I'm like, then what about this whole thing about us being together in all these lives? Are you joking? He's like, no, as sure as my name is Tony, I know we've been together in other lifetimes. I know it. But I don't believe in reincarnation. So I think that's been one of the, and then Leah comes along and like confirms and puts me right back into, okay, maybe he knows something I don't know. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I know that there's so many women in my community who are on their relationship journey right now and intending to find their other half, or some of you that are in relationships. And I think just once you've made that commitment, the next thing that we have to commit to is to making it be the best thing that we've ever done in our lives. And that's what Tony and I have committed to. And through this conversation, we just want to share some of the ways, and it's really in the questions that you all asked, share some of the ways that we have been. And Tony says, please don't position us as experts. So right before we go any further, we're just two people on this journey of marriage, doing life, that we just want to share some of the ways that we're navigating some of the things I know you're all going through as well. So it's so funny. Darian says, powerful people ask powerful questions. And he goes, way to drop the lyrics, Tony. All right. So want to start with the questions?
Yeah. One of the things before we start with the very first question, one of the things that Tasha has walked me into is that we do a lot of reading on a lot of different topics. Now, what I do is on the side is I have my own consulting business. I do executive coaching. I mentor and I teach leadership and leadership theory. And a lot of the concepts that Tasha has actually play directly into leadership, right? Because leadership is all about a relationship. That the person that you are leading has to trust you, has to believe in you. You have to have credibility with them, and you have to have transparency in what you're trying to accomplish. Because depending on the executive level where I teach, you don't get the job done yourself. You get the job done through people. So you have to have all these different qualities. One of the books that Tasha brought, and I think it's called, sweetie, I think it's called 8 Dates.
Yes. Thank you, Heather. I think Heather's watching too.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. And so we read this book together. We would, on vacation next to the pool, we'd pull the book out, different places, and read through it. And it has exercises and different things that you have to do. And it's based on science. And as these two doctors are doing science, and this is how it plays into where I'm really going, it says that 80% of all people who end up getting married are opposites, right? Correction, it doesn't say 80%. It says the majority of people who end up getting married are opposites, which means you're going to have conflict, which means that you're going to see it differently. And just kind of like you're picking up, Tasha and I are different in certain ways. I think we have common values, we have common vision, and I think the most important thing is that we can talk about things that are awkward, uncomfortable, don't feel well. And what I take from that is when I go into my world of leadership, those are the same things that go into working with employees, having awkward conversations. And what it says, what I got out of it is that in the relationship, for me at least, is that I have to use this less and use this more, right? Because I have to do more listening than I do speaking, and trying to understand more of where Tasha's coming from. And the same thing for her. So the first question is, I would love to know, how do you work out your differences in parenting if your values are different? What do you think, babe? Well, let's get the construct. We have we kind of have a blended family. I'm a little older, just a little older than Tasha.
A little tiny bit.
A little bit. And my kids are out of the house, so I have 3 adult children. So they're off in different parts of the world, doing their things and raising families and things to that effect. Our 2 youngest, one is in law school, getting ready to graduate from law school, Natasha. And then we have our youngest, which is Sebastian, who's 16 years old. So let's take it from there.
And so Sebastian is really where we're parenting the most right now. And thank you, Jahanvi, for this question. When we saw it yesterday and we started to talk about it, Tony has some really great thoughts to share on it. For me, and again, the blended family, what did she say? Blended family? Parenting if your values are different. So in our scenario, we have the same values, especially when it comes to parenting. I think we're both on the same page. The growth opportunity for me, and I expressed this to Tony, I think it's not so much about values for me. the growth opportunity for me is I'm very much in the feminine, the mother, the nurturer, the give 1,000 chances. And Tony is very much in the like, we're on the same page about how we're going to do this parenting. But he's very much in the leadership, like masculine, like long vision, see the consequences much further down the road than I sometimes do. And so that is the, what would you say? That's the value that he adds to balance out my being way too soft, probably sometimes. And I don't think I'm soft until we end up in these conversations where we're talking about things. And I'm like, okay. But one of the things that we talked about yesterday when we read this question was really coming back to compromise, right? So you want to share your thoughts?
Well, my role with Sebastian, I don't see my role as stepfather. I see my role as friend. He already has a father. His father is engaged and connected in the family and plays that role. So I don't need to replace his father. I see myself as a friend. I see myself as the person that does the listening. And so when mom and my wife, whether you guys know it or not, is a lioness. She does have a very strong personality. She doesn't show people, but she has a very strong personality when necessary. And she lays down the law with Sebastian, and she's not too soft, and she does a good job. Now, what comes out of our parenting, I think, is a lot of people, their scars, their triggers come from their own childhood, right? And so we both come from parents that were very strong disciplinarians. And we share about our parents, and there's things that we don't want to impact Sebastian with, some of the things that we have grown up with, but we still have some of those values that were inculcated inside of us. And so what I try to do is just listen to him a lot and try to be his sounding board, and then try to explain to him from a different perspective what we're trying to achieve and what we're doing, different things. So I become the backup singer to what Tasha is trying to do. He shares a lot, and he goes to very brilliant young man, very extremely bright, extremely intelligent, very mature in a lot of ways, but some ways he's not there yet, right? He's still 16 years old. He's probably acting at a level of about 14, 15, just like I did when I was at that stage. Extremely competitive. This child is hyper competitive, right? At everything that he does. He wants to win at everything that he puts his hands on. Into sports all over the place. He enjoys, he's very social. He likes his friends, but he's gone through a stage kind of like my two sons did, who are older. My two sons were, glasses, very large ears, small head, braces, thin build, as they were growing up, being picked on at different times. And they grew into these very handsome young men when they hit about 15, 16 years old. And they started getting attention at a level that they had never seen before. And it became their focus, right? Because they've been these kids that have been shunned and not been in a cool group. And now they've shifted and they're getting all this extra attention with their looks, right? And so trying to keep them online, trying to keep them focused that education is job number one, and that you have to stay focused became very difficult. And I see Sebastian going through the same stance, right? So we're having these conversations, and he pushes back because that social atmosphere is so strong for him, trying to move forward. But she and I think there's three sets of values there. Yeah. There's a value that Tasha has, there's a value that I have, and there's a value that Sebastian has too at the same time. Because I think in your first 10 years, your value system comes from internal to the house, your parents, internal in your house. Your second 10 years, 11 to 21, is driven externally by your social group. And so he's been impacted by that too. And so we're struggling right now, to be perfectly honest, on how to guide him, how to touch him, how to make sure that he stays on the right path so he's successful. And that social life is not the biggest thing. Now, I am as guilty too. When I was that age at 15, 16, 17, I was into football, baseball, and track. That's all I cared about, right? I had a young lady that I called my girlfriend, that I could call my girlfriend, but my intentions was football, baseball, and track, and not even so much academics at that stage of my life, right? And he's going through the same thing. So we're trying to address and find a point and allow him to have his own voice, allow him to speak his truth, but also trying to educate him, and for me, to see long range. Get out 5 years, get out 10 years, where are you going, and what decisions are you making today that will impact the long range? But for us in parenting, We compromise a lot. We talk about everything that we're doing. There are no secrets. I get to say I disagree. She gets to say I disagree. And then we say what's best for the family.
Yeah, I think I just to bring that answer, to encapsulate the answer, Jahanvi, for you is, for us, it's understanding that I have, I have my values, Tony has his values, and then Sebastian, we have to honor that your children have some too. And as their parents, I think a lot of times, I know my parents never thought about that. Like, you have your own thoughts, you have your own ideas, you have your own, desires that you have. So we try to do that. And I think one of the things that I would share that I think is working for both of us is, again, me being in the feminine and Tony being the masculine leader of the family is, and just because it was a woman that asked this question, I think one of the things as the mom is knowing that there's a point in time where you have to come together in terms of, okay, so this is our mutual decision, whether we both agree to it or not. After we've both mutually agreed to, this is how we're handling the situation. I might not fully feel like it represents me and what I would do, and Tony might not fully feel like it represents him completely and what he would do, but we mutually decide and then we move forward with executing it.
And I think we know our strengths and weaknesses. Is that Tasha is what attracted me to her, and her friends that I've met through this community, is she has the biggest heart in the world. She is a loving, nurturing, kind, caring, wonderful person, and that's her strength. And so I will acquiesce to that when you're saying we're going too far in this direction. We need to kind of modulate, because that is the strength that she brings. But on the other hand, when I came into Sebastian's life, he was 14 years old, and Tasha was struggling with trying to be that nurturer, loving,
Yeah.
and grow him into manhood too. Well, she's never been a man.
Yeah.
Right. And so I reflected back on when I was 14 years old, and my mom, being a single mom, was trying to build me into this man, but she had never been a man, and what she was doing was actually stifling me. She was channeling into her masculine to try to stay on top of me, although she was building me into being this leader and standing out front and speak your truth. But you didn't do it in her household.
Do it outside when you get out this door, but not while you're in
Also.
here. Yeah.
And so what Tasha and I had conversations about, I had to let her know, is that he's growing into manhood. He's going to push the limits. He's going to flex his muscles. He's growing, and he needs to do that. And he needs to grow, but he has to do it in a functional way too at the same time. And so we had very deep conversations about that and what that looked like as we kind of addressed.
Yeah. And we have a lot of other questions, so I want to move on, but I just want to, because this is a real conversation, I just want to be transparent in saying, so here comes this amazing man in my life, very masculine, obviously we're committed to do this relationship and marriage, and he's going to have a role in the lives of my children. And I'm like, well, I've been doing it all along, and I've been doing it really well, and I am soft and loving and nurturing, and my kids are doing well. And this was an area that was a blind spot for me. I didn't know how to be a man. I never even considered, oh my God, Sebastian shifting into manhood. That's a whole different way of being a parent to him right now, male or female, right? And so that was just something I didn't know. So I would say anyone that's doing that is really, if you can come from the place of the other partner might have a different set of eyes, different information, different background, different perspective, male and female, like there's so much. But if you can bring it back to the willingness to hear each other out and compromise, and then to mutually decide, I can't emphasize that enough, mutually decide. And once you've committed, you have to stand for each other. One of our sayings is, are we a team?
Yes.
Are we a team?
And
Yeah.
Nikki, I just read your comment, and then what I would say, and I don't know your circumstance, and Nikki says that she's struggling with her 15-year-old, is getting a male role model involved, I think, is a positive. Doesn't mean that they have to take the lead, but having a male role model, I think, is a positive to help guide and answer some questions that you've never walked that walk. Doesn't mean that you don't know, it just means you never walked that walk. The next question, this is a good one for you.
Oh.
How do you navigate keeping a strong partnership while also trying to build your business?
Okay. So I want to, everything for me is a story. Here's the story behind this. When I met Tony, I had been single for 10 to 12 years. And in all that time, I had never told anyone that I dated what I did for a living. I would, skirt the question or like, put a nice little standard answer over it. I'm a consultant or whatever. I would never dive deep. I would never divulge what I did, how much I made, any of that. And truth be told, I was scared of being judged. I was scared of their opinions, their thoughts. Like, you all know me, I guard my beliefs, I guard my work, I guard my energy like my life. And so my fear of what someone else would think was what protected or prevented me from sharing what I did with others. So along comes Tony, and like he said, from the get-go, we both knew this is it. Right? When people say that, you're like, really? Yeah, we both knew. And so and this is something that you all know about me. When I commit to something, I fully commit. And so I had already internally, emotionally committed that I was going to see this relationship through. And part of that meant I couldn't hold back on stuff, which means I wasn't going to be able to not say what I did for a living. So I was very nervous. And I remember the exact night I told him. And again, like he said in my profile, it was like, I love, 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 love what I do for a living. And he was like, so what is it that you do? So I started to answer the question, and I just became very transparent. I told him all the nuts and bolts, just the true me, how much I love the work that I do, the people that I serve, the impact that it makes, and how much my work is really a reflection of my work, the stuff I've done on work on myself, on others. And this man, and this is part of the answer to the question, how do we navigate this? His response that night, and just remember before I tell you, Tony is a scientist. He's like super pragmatic, and I'm talking manifesting woo-woo, the stars, the moons, all the things, right? And so I say the whole thing, I gotta like close my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, what's he gonna say? This is where he runs. And he goes, can I ask you a favor? And I said, sure. He goes, will you teach me? And that, I think one of the questions was, how did we know when it was? That was definitely a defining moment for me in our relationship. Again, I was like, all right, have to marry this man. And so this journey in our relationship and now our marriage, where Tony has come into this world with this woman who makes a living in an area that he knows nothing about, for the most part does not believe in, right? I'm out there in a very big way, and he's very the opposite, private, goes and does his work, comes home, and like, that's it, work is done, where I live my work. And I would say that the thing that makes it work for us, and especially for me, is one, that was the place he came into. Like, I want to learn. I'm interested. I might not do all your things. I may never make a manifested list, but I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to, have an appreciation for how it is that you make a living. And that goes a long way. I know that this question is probably sourced in the fact that you're doing something that your partner might not understand or might not believe in. And that's the other piece for me. Tony believes in me. If I chose to sell a cup or a remote or manifesting, like, it doesn't really matter. I know that what he believes in is me. And I feel like that transcends whatever it is that I do for a living. Now, I have to show up for lives on Monday mornings. I have to travel sometimes. I have to be in my office at night doing my downloads. It's Sunday and we want to watch football, and I just got an inspired idea. I have to run to write it all out. And I feel like I am blessed with having someone who just says, go do what you need to do, babe. Like, I'm here. Go do what you need to do. He also balances me, though, with like, okay, and that's enough. Like, okay, and now it's our time. So I feel, in giving you that answer, what I feel truthfully in my heart is like, I'm like, oh, I got the perfect guy and it's just perfect for me. And I don't know that answers the question of someone who might not have a partner who is that understanding or at the level of being committed to you as Tony is to me and my work. And so how do you navigate that? And these are some of the conversations that Tony and I have, because I'll go, so, you know, this lady, I really want to support her. And her husband has this perspective. And again, kind of like with Sebastian, I don't know how to support her with what she needs so he can support her too. So can you maybe share, you know, from your perspective, what you would say to a woman who's looking for, like, I want my husband to be more supportive?
As my wife started off saying, we are not experts, so I'm sure I am not an expert, but I can share my standpoint. Is one of the things when I was mentioning that 8 dates, and I shared the point that the authors there said that you're going to marry people who are different than you are, and because you have differences, you're going to have conflict. And they also said the marriages that work, and they say scientifically this is true, the marriages that work are the marriages that see conflict as a positive, right? They say if you see conflict as a negative, he's always talking about me, he doesn't listen to me, it's not my way, da da da. You see it as a negative, those marriages fail, they say ultimately. They say the marriages that work are the ones that see conflict as evolution and growth. And so I praise Tasha's differences. I praise the fact of the things that I can learn from her. And there again, much like the relationship with Sebastian, doing more listening than using my mouth, right? And when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I was this very competitive person in this very strong leadership role, even within my family. And I did more of this than I did using this. And I think at this stage of life for me now is just doing more listening and understanding. And the funny thing about our relationship, and I'll get to the point here in a second, is that when we first started, Tasha really does not like conflict. That's not her major thing. She doesn't enjoy it. It's not a big thing for her. And when I was always looking for a mate that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, I came down to the conclusion is how you deal with conflict, right? Is how do you see conflict? And this is long before I read that book and got more in depth in it, is how do you deal with conflict? Or do you deal with it in a functional way or dysfunctional? And that's why I was looking at her background on elite.com. Is how does she deal with conflict and how do we address those things? And I think that conflict leads to, does she have compromise or is there compromise? And in that compromise, is there a safe zone, right? So me coming into this situation, one that was positive for us is I used to run large companies, right? And so with that, I didn't handle it very well. With that, my focus was very heavily on getting the job done. I was very focused on being successful at what I was in my position. It took me a lot of time away from the family, a lot of times in focusing on other things. And so when I came into this relationship, I'm not at that stage anymore. I'm at a consultant stage now. I kind of make my schedule and kind of gearing down. And I see my role as supporting Tasha and the things that she's doing. And I understand how much these jobs pull at you. She is, and when you love what you do, it's not a job, right? It's your passion. And when she said, I love, 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 I understand that because I came from something that I love, love, love. And it wasn't a job. It was just a passion for me trying to make a dramatic impact. So I support her and I can understand there was times when in my walk, I would be at dinner, I'd be present with my family, but I wasn't present with my family. And I would be told that I'm staring off into space. We'd be at dinner and I'm staring off into space. And they would go, where are you? And I'm playing chess back at the job I had to do. I got to put this in place. I got to move this. I got to watch out for this. I got to do all this. And I'm doing all these things. And so as she's walking through that, and a lot of her life is thinking about all the questions and the things that you guys are doing and the things that are coming up. And I support her in that. I give her the space to do that and support her. But it took me growing and being in the place to do that. And I don't know if everybody's in that place. They have their own walk that they're going through. We probably see things in old-fashioned ways that we're protectors and providers, right? And so if I'm that protector and provider, I have to be successful. If I have to be successful in a rat race, I got to put in extra time. I got to become very, very good at what I do. I got to be honed. I got to be focused. And that will take me away from the family. What I share with people today is that the only regret that I have is being so focused on that took me away from my family. And I ended up losing my family because of that. And I share with them that you have to have that balance. And even if you don't have balance, from my standpoint, when this is all over and all of us get older, is when you look back, what regrets are you going to have? Is it going to be that I didn't make it to this function? Is it going to be that I wasn't present at this time? Or will it be that, hey, I just didn't make that meeting. That meeting wasn't a big deal, but I went to my kids' PTA meeting. I went to my kids' football game. I supported my wife at her function. I supported my husband. And so I think as you walk that walk, and I applaud all of you who have the courage to do your own businesses, I would say find that balance. And even when the balance is off, I think it's all about people, the people that you love. I have a mother-in-law who's the best mother-in-law on the face of the planet. And
Go, Mom!
I'm not just kind of saying that. And she said something to me when she and I were having a private conversation before I married her daughter. And she said, you want to look for someone who always has your back, right? And she meant that, and we talked about it even deeper. And those are the things that I'm looking for. And I think as you do your journey or your walk, you have to have someone who always has your back, good, bad, or indifferent. And the thing that made me feel safe in our relationship for me is that I finally found someone that I said, if we do this, there's no leaving, right? No leaving for any reason. The good, the bad, the tough, the different things. And it allowed me, when she said, I'm buying into this, it allowed me to become vulnerable to talk about my fears, the things that my scars and the different things that make me vulnerable. So it allowed me to shed off my strong man suit of armor and kind of say, these are the weak points. These are the things that make me want to cry. These are the things that touch my heart, and to be real. And I think the way that you get a person to the point that you want them to work with you, you have to allow them to be real and to buy in. And if you guys are both all the time at conflict, trying to prove the other one is smarter, trying to prove the other one knows more, and trying to be all about me, I think relationships, there again, I'm not an expert. I think relationships is all about the other person. And so I'm a pleaser. And so when she smiles like that, I'm happy. Anytime I could give her a present, anytime I could do anything to make her happy. We had conflict coming up to this hideaway that we're at in the mountains, right? So she says along the same lines, babe, what time are we leaving on Monday? I have to do my Monday morning call at 8 o'clock. So what time are we leaving? And we're about an hour and a half away from the airport. We're snowed in at this point in time, and hopefully we won't be snowed in. We'll be able to get to the airport. But she was just very determined. I have to be there for 8 o'clock. For you guys, she's there for you all the time. That's every single one of my Mondays. She has to be on that call every one of my Mondays when we're on vacation. But that's it. When we're on honeymoon, that's not happening. But any other time I support her, and I said, babe, whatever you need to make that happen, we'll work around it, right? So we'll make sure that takes place. But I guess my short answer, there's a lot of give and take that you have to do, and it's not about you. It's about the other people in your life.
So I want to give I think this will help a lot of people, and it's our conversation about a budget, especially because my people can understand that. So is it okay if I share that conversation?
Anything that makes you happy, babe.
So my wonderful husband walks up to me one day and asks me, what's your budget for groceries? I was like, first of all, you just sinned. You just used the B word to me, a budget, right? And so I immediately got triggered. And he was like, no, I'm just asking, like, how much do you spend on food? And so I'm defensive. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, do you have a budget? No, I don't have a budget. And I'm like triggered and defensive and just going. And there's a lot, we talk about money traumas. There's a lot of traumas related to that question from my husband to me. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So I know I'm triggered. I'm responding from my trauma. And I just in that moment had the wherewithal to say, he loves me. He loves me. He supports me. I don't know why he's asking this question. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what the point is that he wants to make. But I do know he loves me. He wants the best for me. He supports me. And why ever he's bringing this B word up in this moment is somehow for my good. And sure enough, the moment I created the space to think that, I started to hear really, and he doesn't speak in my language. He doesn't know the B word is a bad word to me. You all know. He doesn't know that, right? So the moment I could switch into, I trust him, I'm safe with him, I could really hear what he was saying. And you know what? At the end of that whole thing, he was just trying to show me how I could clean the house every week. That was really where he was going, which is something he knows.
You need to explain that.
Which is something we do clean the house every week. It was just, I get the house, I pay to get the house cleaned twice a month. And I've been telling everyone that will listen, I really should have this house cleaned by someone else every week. And he was like, I don't understand why you don't do that. And I just couldn't justify it. And because he knows I want that, he was trying in his own way to show me, you can afford to do this, Tasha. And that's the long and short of that. But the real answer to the question is, if you can start to just think about, where is my partner coming from for my greater good, and understanding that they're not on this walk. They don't know the lingo. They don't know our way of thinking, our way of being, the things that we're committed to, but they do want our own, they want to support us. They want us to be happy. That's Tony's greatest joy, is for me to be happy. They want us to be happy. They want to provide, protect, and please us. And if I can hear through those ears, I know that conversations always turn out for the best.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
We're going to jump because we're coming to the end of this session. So we're going to get to I think a deeper question. And it says, how to navigate when you're doing the work and the other person is not there and it causes friction. Babe?
Did I answer? Is this my turn? So as someone who not only does the work, but leads so many of you through this process of becoming your most powerful, divine, feminine self. You know, Tony and I had a big laugh the other day because he goes, I hear you telling all your women, you know, you have to think about your desires first. He goes, how does that work in a marriage? And it's like, that's a good question. But it really was a profound question, because we are, and especially the women that are attracted to this conversation and this community, we have leveled up to a point in our journey where we are wanting the best for ourselves. We're wanting to operate at our highest levels. We're wanting to achieve things and take names, right? We want to create legacy. We want to empire build. We want to just experience abundance in all forms, in all areas of our life. And that takes a lot of work on ourselves. And so here we've made that commitment, and we've gone off, especially, you know, for some of us, we will go on retreat, we'll pay to be in a program and have a very nice supportive environment of other people who think like us, who are doing all the same things. And then we have a partner who's not there, who's may not have personally made that commitment to themselves, or making it in a different way, you know? One of the things when I met Tony is a very evolved man. He's very his emotional intelligence is one of the things that I fell in love with, and very much in the divine masculine.
Whatever that means.
He's amazing. And and not doing the work the way I do it. Right. So Tony, you know, Tony is like, you're manifesting, you're doing a what? You're manifesting, Mercury's in retrograde. What? You know, he's like, what are you talking about? That's woo-woo, and it's not science. And so he's not on my journey. He's on his own journey, whatever that might look like. And one of the things that I've had to appreciate is that when I come back to our partnership and our marriage, I have to be the Tasha that meets Tony where he's at. I can't be the Tasha that hangs out with you all and talks woo-woo and our stuff and all of that. Now, I will intersperse it. And Tony just shared with me recently, he's like, I listen to everything that you share and you say. In fact, he's taking some of the stuff and using it in his own teachings. And he's journaling and doing his things in his own way, some of which I don't know about. But I certainly cannot expect Tony to be in the conversations with me the way I am with you all. That's not fair to him. He's not on this journey. And that's really, I think, the thing that's our saving grace for us. We have a unique situation in just both of our levels of development, and then we're married. But I also just feel like at the end of the day, I'm on a completely different growth path in my spiritual walk. And by spiritual, I mean this work that we do versus Tony. And I have to appreciate that.
You know, what I found interesting about the question, and I support everything that Tasha's saying, is when she came back from your last retreat, which was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
She was oozing estrogen, right? I felt a different vibe. She's in a totally different place. I'm like, babe, you're a totally different person right now. There's a totally different feel to you.
Go goddesses.
And so I asked a question of what if you were to come back from that, and let's say that you're one of the participants and you come back from that and that your husband is not there, right?
Yeah.
What all the work that you've done and your husband's not there, because I've even feeling, and you put it on, I'm been feeling a difference and a change in you. I can feel it and I can see it. And it's kind of interesting. But how does that take place? And I can almost imagine if you came back and you're in a different place, but your husband is not in that place, right? And he's still walking his walk and his journey, and you come back and try to connect, and he doesn't understand, right? Because he hasn't taken that walk. And he may even get a little irritated or frustrated because it's a different language, right? And so he may kick into his masculine because he doesn't understand or he doesn't want to buy into it. And then because he kicks into his masculine, you kick into your masculine, right? So you move away from the feminine to the masculine, and then that elevates him to a higher level of masculine, and you have both people. And I think in psychology it's called the superego, ego, and the id, right? So you have the id, the ego, superego.
Scientist.
So as you kick up higher and higher to these levels, you move away from what you're trying to achieve. Tasha does something for me that always brings me back in the line. So we'll have conflict, right? Like any couples, we'll have conflict, and a lot of our conflicts over little silly, stupid stuff, right? And she'll get up, and she gets up really early in the morning. She'll get up and she'll make a plate for me of fruits and different things for me to eat. She spends a lot of time on, a lot of love and care, and she'll put a note, "I love you so very much." Right? And we just had friction the night before. We had some type of conflict that we didn't end. And I come up and I look, she's gotten up early. She's taken the time, and she's gone into her feminine is what she's done. She's gone into her feminine. She tells me she loves me so much. And I go, God, excuse my language. God, I'm a dumbass. Right? And I'm like, this is silly what we're debating over, and I should come back at it a different way. I should have languaged it differently. And when she does, at least for me, when she does her feminine, when we start to do this elevation, and she drops to her feminine, it brings me back down, right? And we can have those conversations, and it also allows me, at least in our relationship, for me to apologize. For if I'm that person who starts the friction or starts the conflict, or the person who doesn't understand well enough, is not hearing what she's trying to get across, to kind of say, I apologize, and let me share with you why I didn't receive it the right way. And we started having these conversations. But I guess my point is when you're at a certain point and the other person isn't at the certain point, if you come back from a wonderful adventure and every life is wonderful, I think if that person is not always understanding, I think if you use that feminine, and at least for me as a man, if I have my mate kick into masculine, right, I'm going to kick into masculine, right? And it's going to elevate itself, right? And hopefully there's even times when I do the opposite, right? There's times she kicks into hers, right?
No, never.
Sometimes she kicks into that lioness, and I'll kind of drop down, take a deep breath, right? And we have this thing called our conflict pose. That when we get into this conflict type of stuff,
I didn't know we were going here today.
We sit at the foot of our bed. I sit with my back against the bed, and she sits on top of me. And keep in mind, we're in conflict right now.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm kind of like, when you're in conflict, you kick in fight or flight. You don't want the person near you. You want to get away from them. You type of stuff. So we're in fight or flight. She'll sit on me, and we'll put our foreheads together, and that's how we start our conversation. Right? She's touching me. I'm touching her. Right? We're going through these moments, and we kind of talk to those things. And for some strange reason, when we do it, temperature drops. Don't know why. It's very hard when someone is forehead to forehead with you having a conversation. And it can be a tough conversation, but we find that moment. And what it is not elevating that conversation. It's bringing it down. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, one of the things that we do, because if I were listening to this, I'd be like, tell me all the 5 steps of this conflict resolution thing. But so Tony is the one that found out about this conflict resolution position. He read about it somewhere and just shared it with me at a time when everything was rosy and all things were wonderful. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so here some time goes by and we have conflict. And I walk over to him and I say, hey, would you like, and again, remember, at this point and in this particular situation, I was probably the most elevated one. I mean, I never ever get upset. Anyway, I was the one that was seriously like way off the handle. And I remember going in the bedroom and just going, I remember someone saying, do you want to be right or happy? And my commitment in our marriage is I want us both to be happy. Like, Tony said, there's no leaving. And that's great. Like, all right, we're going to stay, but we're going to be happy. Like, right? We're going to stay, but we're going to be happy in this staying. And so I went in the room and I remember, okay, so right now, what can you do to bring you both back to love and happiness? And the conflict position came to my mind. And so I'm scared because last I saw him, he was pretty, in his own emotions. And so for me to go over and go, hey, what do you think about the conflict position? I remember he was sitting on the couch. He's like, yes. I was like, whoa. But I think again, that can only happen because we both have the same commitment to not staying in that place. And so he said, yes, I was happy. But I want you to know, ladies, I had to do that. I had to lead. And the feminine, sometimes I think, we think that, because I know in my marriage before, it's like, why do I have to be the one? Why do I have to resolve this? Why do I have to whatever? And it's like, I have come to learn that I don't have to do anything. I get to exercise this soft feminine power that I have for the greater good of our relationship, right? That's the way I see it. So we go in the room, we sit, we face each other. And one of the things that really helps with this conflict position is that we talk in the third person. And Tony and I are committed to being each other's best friends. And so I remember this particular scenario that we're talking about. It was like, I said, so, I just want to share with you my best friend. My husband and I are dealing with this little thing. And when he said this is what I thought. This is how it made me feel. And so he started to respond, well, I go, you mean your wife? When your wife? Because in this moment, I'm just his best friend, right? Totally different person. And that was really helpful for us. I think that really took the steam out of it and allowed us to connect. Because as husband and wife, we're in conflict. But as best friends, we're neutral. We just love each other.
Yeah, I think it's time, babe.
All right. Facts. It's a choice to be happy or right. Mic drop. On behalf of everyone here who is in an intimate relationship, thank you both so much. Aw. And Sylvia, for those of you who are not in an intimate relationship and desiring to be that. Remember, when I met Tony, I was like, I'm done. And Tony became ready for marriage because he, for a long time, was not. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Is there anything about that?
And I think I shared last year at Christmas time when I was introduced, is that I had a friend who, my best friend that I've known since I was 6 years old, and that his wife died when I was on the phone with him here in Florida. She was in California. She had a headache. He says, hey, Tony, I have to get off the phone and got to go check on Phyllis. And she had a headache. And she had a brain aneurysm, and he found her, and she had lost her life. And during the next 2 years, I tried to prop him up because he went through so much pain. Did a lot of listening. He did a lot of crying. And I told him, I said, you don't know how lucky you are. You had 27 years of a soulmate. And I said, I've never had a soulmate. I don't know what that feels like. And I said, I think you're so lucky to have been there and listen to this man's deep love. And his entire life was crumbling because his wife was gone. Right. And it kind of opened my heart. And I think that walk, and I'm very strong in my belief system, my faith in God. And I believe my path has been already ordained for me. It's my being open to accept what God has directed me. And so when Tasha came along, my heart was open to receive, and not only to receive, but also to find that soulmate. I just didn't want to be in a relationship. I wanted to find that soulmate. And then when I go on elite.com, there she is. Drop the mic.
And you almost missed out too, because he was swiping so fast. Not her, not her, not her, not her.
That's true.
And swiped right past me. And thank you that Elite Singles is not one of those where when you swipe, you can't go back, because as soon as he did it, he was like, no, that was her. And he was like, well, just try to swipe back. And so he got me back, and he got me. But for those of you that are here, Christine, I want to read this to you, Tony. Mm-hmm. She says, on a 20-year marriage as I am grateful for this real talk. We are both, hey, Uncle Al and I are watching and listening to you both, Tasha. Tasha Batts, Tasha and Tony. So thank you, Christina. That's really sweet. And hi, Uncle Al. I love knowing that, those who are in relationships, have been in relationship for a long time, have gotten some value from our share.
Al, if I mess things up, I apologize. I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing my opinion.
You didn't mess things up. And so, but for those of you that are not, one of the things that I have found with so many of the women that I serve is after trying for a long time to find the partner for you, it can be so easy to get discouraged and to give up and to say it doesn't exist. And if there's anything I want you to have from this conversation is that it does. And I believe the only reason I'm sitting here celebrating my first Christmas as Mrs. Batts is because I never stopped believing that I could have this. And I was also willing to say that I wanted it, because some women are just like, yeah, you know what, I don't want that. I don't even want to acknowledge that I want or need it. And I just want to inspire you to feel into your heart and ask yourself if you really do, and if you really do, to know that it is possible. I wish someone would have given me a lot of that, like, hope. And so I want to give that to you today. And so with that, Merry Christmas. Thank you for allowing Tony and I to share some time with you today and our story. And I'm really grateful. Those of you that watch the replay, I'm going to come back. Tony and I are going to read back through the comments. And if there's anything else that, you put in there that we can answer, we'll try to do that too. But thank you for spending this time with us today. Have a wonderful holiday with your family. I'm going to see what it feels like. Babe, wolves, come, look. Okay.
We have wolves outside the front door.
I'm going to go see what it's like to be in minus 7 degree.
Happy Manifesting Friday and Merry Christmas. God bless.
Bye, everyone.